ونبينا ومولانا أبي القاسم محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وآل طيبين الطاهرين المعصومين أعوذ بالله من الشر الشيطان الرجيم. Dear sisters and brothers, Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for joining today's Friday prayer. And as you know, I'm not brother Ahmad Rashid Salim. He had travel came up for him, so he's out of state today. So we'll bring the Friday khutbah and then the prayer today. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Al-Anbiya, let me just pick up my mask so you can hear me better. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Al-Anbiya verses 9 says, وَمَا صَرَفْنَاهُمُ الْوَعْدَ فَأَنْجَيْنَاهُمْ وَالنَّشَاءُ وَأَهْلَكْنَا الْمُسْرِفِينَ. That we fulfill our promise. This is the story of different Surah Al-Anbiya is kind of summary of all the different communities were before the prophet, and they sent various prophets. And this is kind of summarizes that we fulfill our promise to them in the end. We save them and those who wish to save, and we destroy those who exceeded all bounds. They're Musrafin. Also, another verse, Surah Al-An'am, verse 142, talks about the israf and the issue of wastefulness. It says, وَلَا تَسْرَفُوا إِنَّهُ لَا يُحِبُّ الْمُسْرَفِينَ. Not be one of the wasteful. God does not like the wasteful people. And there are also many other verses which talks about the issue of israf. In this verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Surah Al-Ghafir, he says, وَأَنَّا مَرَدْنَا إِلَى اللَّهِ وَإِنَّ الْمُسْرَفِينَ هُمْ أَصْحَابُ النَّارِ. Our return is to God alone, and it will be the rebels who will inhabit the fire, or Musrafin will inhabit the fire. So as you can gather, my talk about israf, the issue of israf, and kind of associated with israf, another Quranic concept of tabzir, which is a kind of a special form of israf. And on this regard, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Al-Isra says, وَآتَ ذَا الْغُرْبَى حَقَّهُ وَالْمِسْكِينَ وَابْنَ السَّبِيلِ وَلَا تُبْذِرَ تَبْذِيرًا إِنَّ الْمُبْذِرِينَ كَانُوا إِخْوَانَ الشَّيَاطِينِ وَكَانَ الشَّيْطَانُ لِرَبِّهِ كَفُورًا. Give your relatives their dues, and the needy and the travelers. Do not squander your wealth wastefully. Those who squander are the brothers of Satan, and Satan is most ungrateful to his Lord. So what is israf and what is tabzir? Israf basically is general wastefulness. So it is very general term in Quran. It does not say exactly, what is the had and hudud of israf, of being a musraf or being the one who's wasteful. It's a very general concept, and I'm sure, as you know, depending on where we live geographically, depending on what society we live, what period of the time, these things, the meaning of it, of being wasteful can change. And also, being wasteful does not apply only to material things, but also applies to things that are not material. Let's say you're wasting your time, so it's a very, very, very general term. And then tabzir, which comes from the word bazara and bazr in Farsi, we say the seed, it's really the seed. But really tabzir is being wasteful of your resources, mainly material resources. So, as I said, for example, in let's say if you live in a very desert environment, even a cup or a fist of water would be, and throwing away would be israf, wasteful. But if you are, let's say, living in, I don't know, Oregon or Michigan, it's raining, it rains every day, even summer. So really a cup of water being wasted, you're not being israf. So, but it really, what is being israf or the had of it or the limits of it, it's really, as I said, dependent on where you live and what you do, and also the society you live in. But why being wasteful is behavior of Satan or the gods so much condones it in Quran. So there are several things. One is, it depends on what kind of stuff you have, but it can have physical harm to yourself. I mean, if you're exceeding the limits of the food that you need to intake, of course, it brings great harm to the body. I don't have to tell you that, being overweight, being obese right now is really a huge issue, not only in the United States, but all the affluent society. Every society that becomes affluent, they have more money, a lot of money, or those part of society that becomes affluent, consumption or overconsumption of food and drinks becomes a major issue. All you have to do is look at even the obese epidemic in India, in China, in Muslim countries. If you go travel, you can see that. The other thing that Quran talks about is really decreasing of blessing. So we are, one of the concepts of shukr, or giving thanks, is really to use the resources that you have in moderation and correct manner. So if you are wasting the resources, whatever that is, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will decrease the blessing. And there's a saying from Masara that says, "Innama al-israf qillatul barakah." That means the israf decreases the barakah of what you have. The other thing is, it says God really deprives the guidance. That verse I mentioned to you in the beginning. Really, God destroys and deprives people of guidance if we are, or if a society becomes a musraf society, becomes a wasteful society. And then brings destruction. So israf also brings the destruction of, especially to the societies who have been wasteful in the past. Again, as I mentioned, that verse from Surah Al-Anbiya talks about the previous societies, previous communities, that one of the reasons that Allah destroyed them because they were one of the musrafin. And of course, I don't have to say the punishment of in the hereafter. Again, there are many verses of Quran that says, okay, those who are musrafin will be dealt harshly in the hereafter. And then there are bigger impact of not only individually, but also, as I said, in the society. There is the saying that Imam Ali alayhi salam, that says, "Al-israfu yufni al-jazir." That means israf destroys even great amounts of wealth. So israf has that thing that when a society becomes a musraf, it destroys its wealth, even if it's huge. Also, the other thing is it impacts the societal moral fabrics and ethics. We can see it all around us. I mean, this is one of the wealthiest societies that known on the earth, and here, one of the wealthiest states in the United States, and we are in one of the wealthiest whatever zip codes or areas in the United States or in California, but you go outside, I mean, you just get depressed because there's so much homelessness and other issues, imbalance. So a society that really becomes a musraf, becomes a huge imbalance, and that imbalance not only impacts the people who are doing the israf, but also, and not only those people who don't have enough means, but also those who have the means, even will impact them. It will impact their psychology, it impacts how they behave toward others, decrease the empathy toward others, and all the societal ills that we are right now seeing and witnessing in the society. And also it's pointed out that Ibn Khaldun has also said that it really also the being kind of a musraf society, it really also declines the effectiveness of government. So the government or the governing body kind of erodes. So the effectiveness of government, and I think, maybe that was a long time ago, but still we can see that today. So societies that there's a lot of israf and there's a lot of imbalance in wealth, you see the governance, the effectiveness of the government kind of decreasing. And so that's kind of the general, topic of israf. There is not a whole lot of, discussions or scholarship of Islamic scholarship on this thing. Hopefully there will be more. But really, I think, as we'll discuss in the next part of the khutbah, really, it is a concept that the world, especially the affluent society, really need to use this concept and implement it if we won't have any hope of surviving there. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. Sallallahu Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. اللهم صل على محمد اللهم صل على محمد اللهم صل على محمد. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So in this second part of khutbah, I just want to talk about, it's a huge topic, and that is, what can we do, as members of the society to reduce or reduce our consumption, which is really related directly to israf, and do our share. I mean, it's very clear from all this scientific evidence and from our own, firsthand observations, that the earth is going through a turmoil. I mean, I have lived in Northern California, for, almost, I can say 40 years. I've never seen California, especially Northern California, being so dry. I never seen, and by the way, I work in the water industry, so I'm an engineer in the water and have a degree in environmental engineering. The issues that you're facing are tremendous. Not only here in terms of water in California, but all over the world. All over the world, we have kind of extreme weather patterns. We don't know what to do with our waste, solid waste. We are overusing almost every resources, our fish, our forests everywhere, rainforests particularly, they're all being basically destroyed as we're talking right now. And if the humanity continues like this, there will not be humanity, or there may be humanity, but there will be huge consequences on upheavals. So what needs to be done is really drastically reduce our consumption of everything. Okay. And then the consumption has been directly, now I'm just reading a paper that was put out by a group of scientists from Sydney, from University of Leeds in London, from Zurich. They came up about the scientists, the warning on affluence. So there is a direct correlation between when the societies become affluent and consumerism consumption. Because the model that we have is the growth model or capitalism model is all based on consuming more and more and more, okay? And that's the way it is. And it is huge. Until we totally shift that paradigm, nothing will really change. I mean, and also at the same time, it looks like many people, they don't want to take any personal responsibility. Everybody's waiting for government, to take action, some Paris Accord or whatever. But even that's, I mean, even let's say best case, all the government agrees that we're going to reduce things. But until we individually change our behavior, it will not change anything. So consumption or lack or overconsumption, that's what it is. We have to consume things. You have to consume food, you have to consume whatever energy to move around. But it's really the overconsumption. There is a certain consumption that is needed to live. And above that level, to me, is really becomes israf. And we all live in a society, it's like breathing air. Where is the air? So there is no escaping from air. So here in this society, there's no escaping from overconsumption because it's everywhere. But we have, as we become mindful to it and understand it, we can change some of our behavior, at least to have a chance. So there is a lot of energy by different scientists are being put into, okay, what is the most effective? What is the most effective action that we can take as personally to reduce it? So there are many things that we can do. And before I go over that, I just want to give you some data that how affluent the United States is and how we consume more than any other people on the earth. This is from Center of Sustainable Systems from University of Michigan. And this is, some of these data is like maybe a few years old, but still gives you a big picture. For example, about the food. EPA estimates that in 2017, more food was landfilled than any other trash material. Around 23% of food ends up in the landfill. The average American wastes 50% more food than in 1970s. So 1970s, even the same society, we're not talking about different society, talking about the United States. We are right now wasting 50% more food than the 1970s. The waste accounts for roughly 15%, this food waste, of municipal solid waste stream and represents loss of $450 per person each year. So in terms of calorie consumption, the average American daily calorie consumption has increased from 2,054 in 1970 to 2,501 in 2010. Now, even now, if you go trajectory, probably it's like 2,700 now. So that's why you see the obesity issue and so on. So just few figures in terms of food consumption. In terms of material use and waste, this is again a little bit old, this data. In 2000, per capita consumption of all materials in the United States was 13.7 metric tons, 52% more than European average. So in 2000, we consumed 50% more than average European countries. And in 2017, the average American generated 4.5 pounds of municipal waste each day, 4.5 pounds each day. Only 1.6 pounds recycled or composted. Comparison, for example, in Sweden, it's only 2.2, less than half. UK is like 3, and Germany is 1.7. So even we are comparing ourselves with other affluent societies, Germany and Sweden and UK. And the list goes on and on. About greenhouse gases. In 2018, US greenhouse gas emission were 10.4 metric ton of CO2 per person. Again, that is much larger than other societies. And again, let's say in terms of housing, since 1970s, average residential living trends in the United States has been toward bigger houses, fewer occupants. US home size increased 41%. So from 1970 to now, houses grew sizes by 41%. The numbers decreased by 15%, number of occupying those houses. Living space per person increased 66%. So that's huge. So just some numbers, throwing out some numbers that we are in a very consumerist society, and unless we really take charge and really change our behaviors, things will not get any better. I mean, we cannot. I mean, individually, we cannot. As society, we cannot for the government to resolve these things, and individually, we have to take our own the responsibility. So, where are the most effective? Where can we start? I mean, this is huge topics, and there are many papers about it. But well, one of the things you can start talking about, like we're discussing. So to me, it's not just a ethical, moral issue, but it's also a very Islamic issue. Because I don't want to be a part of, at least not labeled as Musref. I want to be live in do my part, not to be a part of a Musref society. So one is, of course, is housing is a big issue, energy that you spend in your house. So, but in the society, it tells you, you reach a certain income, you have to upgrade. You have to have a bigger house and bigger house and bigger house. So as I said, the average has gone up. So bigger house needs more energy, right? You have to consume more energy to warm it up, to cool it down, and so on. Of course, number one is always the transportation. The transportation, either by plane or just moving around, is a huge part of energy that we consume. So we have to be mindful. What kind of car we buy. Try to buy cars that are more efficient. Of course, using public transit is probably the best solution, or using bicycles. But unfortunately, the way the urban plan in the United States is such that makes it almost very difficult unless you live, let's say, in San Francisco or New York, something like that. But other places, you're cut off. But one have to be mindful. Flight, I mean, I love traveling. We all love traveling, but flight puts a huge burden on the environment. The other huge issue is, I'm sure is food. The food, especially meat, consumption of meat, and especially beef. Of all the foods, of all the foods, of beef is really huge. Trying to switch to more vegetarian-based. I'm not saying that we all should be vegetarian, but plant-based food are much more earth-friendly than meat. And again, that has Islamic merit too, because the Prophet has, I'm sure you heard that, saying that at least that your stomach should not be the kind of burial ground for animals or for meat. So we should kind of discourage us from eating a lot of meat consumption. And then even if you have to eat some meat, the lamb normally is better than they say beef, or chickens are better than other forms. But again, food is a huge, and not wasting it. I mean, I have been houses, our friends, my family members, that they go to Costco to buy things. Okay, they buy huge, this big size of whatever, lettuce, apple, whatever they want to buy. But then they put it in whatever in their garage, and then they forget about it. So, or they only consume like a couple apples, then they forget. Half of it becomes rotten. On top of that, when you buy from Costco, you have everything is wrapped up in huge plastic stuff. So all that really impacts. You're wasting a lot of resources, both energy and also wasting food. So consuming, reducing your consumption, and then lastly is really helping others be mindful of what we're doing and encouraging others to not waste. Also, the fashion, as you know, the whole, not only fashion, but the clothing has become a large issue. The clothing, waste of clothing. I'm sure if we all go to, our wardrobes and open it up, I'm sure, at least I can say for myself, I'm not wearing 50% of the stuff that I have. I'm not wearing them. I bought them or somebody gave it to me and I just have it there. Either it's small now or it's large now or the color that I don't like. So this is what I'm saying, that we buy a lot of stuff or receive a lot of stuff that are not needed. So if we are not needed, at least let's try to give it to somebody who can use it. So we don't end up in landfill. But the most important thing is, as I said, is we are buying just too much stuff, period, including myself. We're just buying too much stuff that we don't need. Most of the times, I thought, hopefully maybe this pandemic kind of wake us up as a society, but it has gone the other way, I think. So people they say now it's pent up demand. They want to, travel more, they want to buy more, they want a bigger this, want a bigger that, they want a bigger houses. They want to stay away from the city, but then, now they want to have fun. They will travel back and forth. So it has not really solved any issue, but maybe even have exacerbated some of the problems that we had in society. Definitely has increased the super affluence. The super affluence. That's another issue. The super affluent in every society really set the trend for that society. So, and then with the advent of social media, we can see how these super affluent or influencer, whatever you want to call them, they are a model, how others should consume. So we are kind of in this vicious cycle that seems to no end, but we are consumers. We are the one who ultimately buy things, we spend money. So we have to take our responsibility, especially as a Muslim consumer, seriously, and do in a way, consume in a way that is not israf. And then I will finish my talk. That may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help us and guide us to live in a society which is there's more equality, more balance, and help us to overcome these tests. All these things are tests. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. ربنا أفرغ علينا صبرا وثبت أقدامنا وانصرنا على القوم الكافرين. ربنا ولا تحملنا ما لا طاقة لنا به واعف عنا واغفر لنا وارحمنا أنت مولانا فانصرنا على القوم الكافرين. ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب. صلى الله محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد.